used to always tell me, or kekere so funuabi, to bad anywhere, or my din, meaning she's only gonna tell, we're only gonna tell you half the story. The rest of the story is to kind of discover. Hey everyone, my name is Femi Lawson. Fine boy, no pimples, just dimples, just dimples. I was born and raised here in Toronto, Canada. I get Niger blood. Yoruba boy. Go to Lagos almost every single year. Here in Toronto, people know me for a lot of different things because I wear a lot of different hats. For the most part, educational-wise, because the aunties and the uncles, they like that side. I went to Ryerson University, got my major in criminal justice, and then I went on to do my master's in environmental studies, and I focus on arts, education, and youth. So that's the educational side. On the other side, I have the entertainment side where I'm an international host. I do a lot of big events in regards to the Afrobeat community. When Wizkid did his first show in 2019, I hosted it. I believe Mr. Eazi did his first show 2016, I hosted it. When Burna Boy recently came 2022, I did his Canada tour. I hosted both here in Vancouver, Tiwa Savage, and the list goes on. So, I'm a very big lover of my culture. I try to promote it through all the media that I've done. In 2012, I had a very big YouTube career. I was one of the first kind of YouTubers coming out of Canada, and one of the most popular Nigerian YouTubers. When YouTube first came out, I used to do a lot of skits and parodies kind of in regards to our culture and just come with some of the funny things that, comes along with it. And I went, super viral, millions of views. Fast forward to today, I have TV shows, one with Michael Blackson on Amazon Prime called Rich Africans. Yeah, you guys are gonna get to know me, so stay tuned. JAPA! I think it's important to have someone that represents the culture, navigate the culture, because I feel like, growing up here in Toronto, I was the token Nigerian amongst, my friends from the Caribbean, from the Middle East, and so on and so forth. So a lot of the nuances of how people act, what's disrespectful in one culture versus respectful in another, those are the things that I can help to navigate because, when I was going to Lagos, it took me 7 years to understand how to be in Lagos, because Lagos is very, very different than Toronto. So now when you have people, entities, superstars coming from that side of the world to here, it's important to have kind of that person who can stand for you and kind of show you, what's going on, the food places to eat, the people to meet, and just to identify certain things to help create that synergy and create that comfort. So, I feel like that's something that I've always stood on, and it's something that I've always wanted to represent, and I enjoy doing it. Back in the day, I was having a discussion where, you would probably hear African Queen in the club as the only African record playing. Fast forward to 2023, if you're not hearing Afrobeats in the club, that club is probably out of business, So times have really changed, and I remember back then, I'm talking like 2012, 2013, I was the one here pushing for Afrobeats. As I entered any environment, they would be like, Baba Femi's here, we gotta play him, we gotta play some Afrobeats for him. And I started to get people, aligned with the culture, aligned with the music, aligned with the dressing. I would come and wear ripped jeans, Timberlands, and an Ankara shirt. And people would be like, damn, man, yo, where'd you get that? I said, yo, from Nigeria. They're like, yo, hook me up. So after a while, you started to see the impact of even the fashion, on the culture. And, Toronto being the most diverse place in the world, you see so many different cultures constantly. So, for me, I look at it as a cultural mosaic where everybody has a quilt on a blanket. Which color is your own quilt? And my own quilt color is jollof rice, I would say growing up as an African in Canada, Toronto especially, was really challenging for a lot of people. That being because oftentimes, you know, people didn't really understand what Africa was all about, because the only thing you're seeing is World Vision commercials, flies flying in people's faces and things of that sort. So oftentimes you would see that you would be met with a lot of ridicule. I remember one time it was raining outside and all my friends were like, "Oh, Femi, come, we gotta show you something." And it was mud. And he said, "Look at your house." But I don't know, one thing about me is I did stubborn. I'm a stubborn ass guy too. Because as they're making fun of me too, I would just be, I won't take it to heart. You know, my parents always told me that Agbalaba to joko, orionju omede to durolo. Meaning, you know, an old person that sits down can see farther, way farther than a child who's standing up. And it really made me understand that sometimes people say things that they're not knowledgeable about yet because they don't have the experience about it. So why would I, you know, react to a bunch of youngins who have never even left their neighborhood about who I am? The neighborhood I grew up in here in Toronto, you know, I would say was a very tough neighborhood, but it gave me strength as well because I was always representing my culture no matter what. And, you know, a lot of kids couldn't take it to the point where some even denounced their own culture to join another culture because they didn't want to be affiliated with being African. Back in the day when Kevin was claiming that he was from Trinidad when his real name is Kwame and he's from Ghana. But then after when Afrobeat got popular, he now claimed his real name again. I'm looking at all you guys, all of you guys, referring me back in the day from day one. I always let people know who I was, where I stood on. And I think that was very important and is part of the reason why I feel like I am one of the leaders when it comes to cross-cultural connections. You know, I really knew how to connect. And I think a big part of that also was when I first started going to Lagos, my mom explained to me, she said, "Femi, we're part of a royal family and I want to bring you to the palace." And I looked at her and I said, "I beg, like, what are you talking about?" And I remember, you know, we entered the boat, and when we entered the boat, I said, "No life jacket on this boat." My mom said, looked at me in my eyes. She's like, "Femi, our ancestors have been on this water. We can never drown." And she said it with such conviction that I had to really step back and say, you know, all the westernized thoughts that I have in my head, I need to kind of put it aside right now, because right now we're in the motherland. Like, our ancestors have been in this land for years. I have to actually take in this moment. And I remember going to the palace and seeing my mom's maiden name engraved in the chairs. I see pictures of my great-great-grandfathers as, you know, Obas and kings. And I think that trip really opened my eyes to realize that we are royalty. You know, we're kings and queens. And I think as a Nigerian, I just have all the other side of the story that's not told to everybody else that is a Black person. So my job is to share that story and to share it through different mediums. And, you know, I think that's why I love entertainment. I love hosting shows with thousands of people, because what you're doing is you're transcending energy. You know, you're allowing people to be in an experience where they can really kind of get on your frequency and vibrate with you. And when people can feel empowered through these different mediums, it does a long thing. And I think that's what, you know, the Afrobeat culture is doing. That's what people like myself and others who are in the diaspora are doing. And it's making it easy for, you know, when those that come from the continent go on these world tours, it's making it much easier for them, because when we connect, it's the missing piece of the puzzle. My story when it comes to the entertainment started around that 2010 time when YouTube first came out. I was doing videos on the Toronto accent called, you know, things Toronto people say. And it was interesting because at the time when we made the video, people had very mixed reviews. They were like, what kind of, how come these guys are talking like this? You know, are they educated? Things of that sort. And it was the first time that I experienced kind of online bullying, right? And it was interesting. But then I also thought to myself, I said, wait, I'm also Nigerian. So I started I made one called Things Nigerians Say. And I realized that started to open the minds of individuals who were like me, who were born and raised outside of Nigeria, creating this Nigerian content. And it was interesting because we're going back 2012, you know, you have the Canadian-born Nigerians interacting with the Lagos-born Nigerians. The interaction didn't happen. They didn't think of us as them. Oftentimes they felt that because they had SS1 and boarding school and all these stories, they kept amongst with themselves. Whereas we were the outcast. So I'm mingling with my Toronto diverse community as the Nigerian guy. But amongst my Nigerians, I'm the Akata guy. So it was a very big, hard transition to even mesh with Nigerians growing up here in Toronto originally. Going back home was even worse for me because they were looking at me like, are you Jamaican? Like, why do you speak like that? Your accent is funny, your Yoruba is this, your Pidgin is that. So you definitely had to navigate a lot of adversity being Nigerian. What YouTube did at the time, it created a community of individuals like myself to kind of relate to what I was saying, because it wasn't like my Pidgin was like I was from Warri. It was a very washed, Canadianized, Toronto version of what I think being Nigerian was. Before, they didn't feel like I was a part of them. And when I started creating my content and getting more validation from those outsiders, those on the inside, Nigerians they were saying that no, Femi is actually now a part of us. You know, he is us. You know, he's not on the outside, he's representing us. And that only happened because I was able to put myself in a place of uncomfort, where I was able to just say, you know what, I'm not listening to what everybody's saying. I'm gonna do what feels good for me. I'm gonna do things that I was raised on, what I know. And if I make mistakes through it, so what? I could do better again. And I think that was the defining moment where I started to realize that this journey that I'm on is just beginning. I saw people from, you know, the States, people from the UK, people from here really tapping in. And I think it was at that moment that I realized that, wow, you know, this is pretty cool. So I started to create music parodies, where I would take an artist like Drake's song and I would make it into a Nigerian version. I did that with, I remember I did one for Bobby Shmurda, and I called it Hot Naija. And we actually went to New York to go shoot it. And at the time, I got to meet a lot of people on my journey. That's where I went, and I think I met DJ Tunez. He was in the video, Young Tunez, my video. I met Antetokounmpo, who plays in the NBA right now as well too. And you know, this is all of us coming up. That was before Tunez was Wizkid's DJ, right? You know, I knew him as my broski in New York, my Niger boy in New York. So even seeing things happen, you start to see how things are interconnected. I ended up hosting a festival in the Virgin Islands. That was the first time that I met Iku. Before, he was David O's DJ as well too. And I'm talking, this is, you know, way back in the day, before any fame, before any affiliation. Just seeing guys from all around the world connect because of this platform. I remember the first time that Mr. Eazi wanted to come to Canada. I got a Facebook message from Eazi saying, hey, Femi, you know, I watch your videos on YouTube. My manager's gonna hit you up. His manager was Dorregos at the time. And Dorregos is like, Femi, want you and another OVO artist, Big Lean, to do the show at Rebel. And at the time, we weren't doing too many Afrobeat shows. But I'm the African Nigerian guy in Toronto. So we did that show and Eazi sold out. We did the party. It was an amazing experience, amazing. And I remember going to Lagos that year, and I was at I believe the Intercontinental Hotel, and I think Echo Hotel, and Wiz was about to have a show. So Eazi was there with his girlfriend, and it was interesting because nobody in Nigeria, they don't look at your face. If you don't say hi to them, they won't say hi to you. But then Eazi saw me and he said, "Tantalization." And I held them up and I said, "Eazi, what are you dealing with?" So originally they're already hearing that, this guy, he doesn't sound like he's from here. As soon as that happened and, we embraced and we talked, I started to see others saying, Femo, we see you. So I'm like, oh, you know me too? So it was just interesting just to see, again, understanding the culture, who embraces you, who's going to, fight for you type of energy. But it was nice because now, a lot of the people I've met on my journey, I'm starting to see in other places, Tunez, hosting with Wiz, Ecool, hosting as well. DJ Obi, met him, quite a couple times when he was coming up as well too. Just to name a few. And I think it's beautiful just to see when people are putting their talents together from both the diaspora and back home. When we come together, it's always like a beautiful meshing. So, yeah. So going back to kind of your question in regards to that kind of relationship between those in the diaspora and those from back home, it was a very rough one. And I think, things such as music and entertainment helped to kind of mesh things a little bit better, and it helped people to understand things a little bit better. I know that for myself, there were a lot of things that I did as the Toronto Canadian that I didn't know people found as disrespectful coming from Lagos. And it was literally just like a cultural learning. We needed to have the discussion to be like, no, it's not like that. When I actually do this, I mean this. They're like, well, when somebody does that in Nigeria, it means this. So if we didn't have that discussion, you would just look at me like, this guy is a terrible individual, whereas I'm looking at you like, why don't you understand me? So, I think here, there's a lot of those conversations that are happening constantly with people. And, when you look at the relationship between Lagos and London, England, for example, that relationship took a while to happen. Just a couple of days ago, I was with Smade and we're kind of talking about, experiences, because him being in London and, working with Wizkid and working with Davido and kind of helping to create that spot where the Nigerian artist can come and say, there's somebody here that's gonna represent you. Similar to the things that I do here in Toronto, where if you guys come to Toronto, you have people here that will represent you. You have somebody here that can bring that crowd that might not necessarily know you to get to know you. You have that person, those DJs that will play your records, even in the places that you don't expect to. Yesterday, we were at the Nike game, and you could see that as soon as halftime came around, or in the middle of, the basketball game with NBA players, they're playing Afrobeats because I'm hosting. It's a standard. And environments like that before would never have Afrobeats playing, because there were not a lot of us who stood and faced that and were confident in facing that. So, it's kind of everybody works with each other hand in hand. And I think a lot of individuals are realizing that. And that's why you see things changing. You see in every single field, there's a Nigerian there, and, people are talking about us, and we flourish, we thrive, we love family, we love education, we love money. So, we thrive everywhere in the world. So I'm really excited to see where the future goes. If anyone is going to take anything away from my story, I think the one thing that I would give advice for is understanding that you've already won, because the time that you fail is the time, or the time that it's finished is when you die. And for every struggle, there's sunshine at the end of the day. I remember one of the most hardest experiences was I got the opportunity to shoot a movie in LA. I was in Hollywood. I got a call and they said, you know what, we want you to shoot this film in Hollywood. They've put the first class ticket. You know, I was out in Hollywood for about 3 months living in the Hidden Hills, and it was an amazing experience. And at the time, my dad was also sick in Nigeria. And I remember the day that we were supposed to watch the first cut of that film. Somebody just asked, oh, could you call an Uber so we can go to the theater to watch the first cut? As I picked up my phone, I got a call from my older brother saying that my dad passed away, right? And I sat there and I said, wow, here's the biggest opportunity of my life with the biggest heartbreak of my life at the same time. And to navigate that, I always say that God has a path for everybody. The only way that you can navigate a lot of these issues is by having faith. You know, whatever that is, if it's spiritual, if it's, you know, meditation, however you practice, have faith. I think a lot of people, they lose hope too quickly because they feel like they're the only ones going through it. For everything that anyone has gone through, somebody else has gone through worse. And I think when you kind of put your mind in that mindset, you can realize that, you know what, everything is really just temporary. If I told you all the stories of terrible things that happened in my life, a lot of people would look at me like, you know, how are you here? So for me, you know, the price that I paid helped to pay the price that is pumping me right now. You know, adversity for me is fun. I feel like if you're not challenged, you won't grow. Growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. It happens when you feel uncomfortable. And I think for those parts of my life where I feel very uncomfortable, it helped to create me to be the king that I am today. My mom used to always tell me, meaning we're only gonna tell you half the story. The rest of the story is for you to kind of discover. And, you know, with my experience being in the entertainment scene, doing community initiatives, I want you to just take bits and pieces of my story and what I've gone through, and hopefully it can help you to navigate your own. So for all of those who want to enter the entertainment industry, or, you know, have dreams and aspirations in being in it, the first step is just to try. And through it, you'll learn a lot and you'll figure out your own story. I go by the name of Femi Lawson, fine boy, no pimples, just dimples, Mr. Tantalizer, and this is JAPA.RUN.